Hello, everybody. It's Mike History 2, and I'm finally back after basically 2 months, basically not made a video for the entire summer. Really sorry about that. But basically, what happened was, as I said in my last video, bad news. I had to go to Spain, to the UK, and to Canada. In Spain, I was at a summer camp, so I couldn't make videos. In the UK, I did have my computer, but I wasn't actually doing anything. Um, I mean, no, not I wasn't. I couldn't actually do anything. That's what I meant to say, because we were busy all day. And then in Canada, the first 2 weeks I was at summer camp, and then once that was over, I thought I could finally make videos, but nope, I had homework. And basically, ever since then, all I've been doing is homework the rest of the summer because we all know that's what the summer break's for. And now that said, I have made a couple of videos on the traditionalist and on demographia in the last week. And the reason I made those videos was because I haven't been very active on either channel and I needed to make some more videos. But now that that's done, I'm finally back here because this still is my main channel. So this is going to be Stalin versus Trotsky part 7, I believe. I don't even remember, it's been so long. But now that we're finally done talking about Stalin, today we'll talk about Trotsky. So, Lev Bronstein, better known as Leon Trotsky, was a Russian revolutionary theorist and Soviet politician. He was ideologically a communist, and he later developed his own version of communism, which is Trotskyism. He was born on November 7th, 1879, the fifth child of a Ukrainian Jewish family of wealthy farmers in Yanovka in Russia, now Beroslavka in Ukraine. His parents were David Bronstein and his wife Lvovna. No, Anna Lvovna, sorry. When Bronstein was 8, his father sent him to Odessa to be educated, and he was enrolled in a German school which became Russified during his years in Odessa as a result of the government's policy of Russification. Bronstein became involved in revolutionary activities in 1896 after moving to Nikolaev, now Mykolaiv, on the Ukrainian coast of the Black Sea. At first a revolutionary populist, he initially opposed communism, but was later won over to communism later that year by his future first wife, Alexandra Sokolovskaya. Instead of pursuing a mathematics degree, Bronstein helped organize the South Russian Workers' Union in Nikolaev in early 1897. He wrote and printed leaflets and proclamations, distributed revolutionary pamphlets, and popularized socialist ideas among industrial workers and revolutionary students. In January 1898, more than 200 members of the Union, including Bronstein, were arrested. He was held for the next 2 years in prison awaiting trial, first in Nikolaev, then Kherson, then Odessa, and finally in Moscow. In the Moscow prison, he came into contact with other revolutionaries and heard about Lenin and read Lenin's book, The Development of Capitalism in Russia. 2 months into his imprisonment, on March 1st to 3rd, 1898, the First Congress of the newly formed Russian Social Democratic Labour Party was held. From then on, Bronstein was a member of the party. While in the prison in Moscow in the summer of 1899, Bronstein married Alexandra Sokolovskaya, a fellow communist. In 1900, he was sentenced to 4 years in exile in Siberia. Because of their marriage, Bronstein and his wife were allowed to be exiled to the same place. They're both exiled to Ust-Kut and Verkholinsk. They had 2 daughters, Zinaida and Nina, both born in Siberia. In Siberia, Bronstein studied philosophy. He became aware of the differences within the party, which had been reduced by arrests in 1898 and 1899. Some Social Democrats argued that the party should focus on helping industrial workers improve their lot in life and were not so worried about changing the government. They believed that societal reforms would grow out of the workers' struggle for higher pay and better working conditions. Others argued that overthrowing the monarchy was more important and that a well-organized and disciplined revolutionary party was essential. The latter position was expressed by the London-based newspaper The Spark, which was founded in 1900. Bronstein quickly sided with the Spark position and began writing for the paper. In the summer of 1902, at the urging of his wife, Bronstein escaped from Siberia, hidden in a load of hay on a wagon. Alexandra later escaped from Siberia with their daughters. Leon and Alexandra soon separated and divorced, but maintained a friendly relationship. Now, until this point in his life, Bronstein had used his name. He changed his name to Trotsky, was last name to Trotsky, the name he would use for the rest of his life. After his escape from Siberia, Trotsky moved to London, joining Georgy Plekhanov, Vladimir Lenin, Julius Martov, and other editors of the Spark. Trotsky soon became one of the newspaper's leading writers. In late 1902, Trotsky met Natalia Ivanovna Sedova, who soon became his companion. They married in 1903, and she was with him until his death. They had two children together, Lev Sedov and Sergei Sedov. In the meantime, after a period of secret police repression and internal confusion that followed the First Party Congress in 1898, the Spark succeeded in convening the party's Second Congress in London in August 1903, which Trotsky and the Spark editors attended. Shortly thereafter, the Spark delegates split into two factions. Yeah, they seem to always be fighting with each other. Lenin and his supporters, the Bolsheviks, argued for a smaller but highly organized party, while Martov and his supporters, the Mensheviks, argued for a larger, less disciplined party. In a surprise move, Trotsky and most of the Spark editors supported Martov and the Mensheviks, while Plekhanov supported Lenin and the Bolsheviks. During 1903 and 1904, many members changed sides. Plekhanov soon left the Bolsheviks. Trotsky left the Mensheviks in September 1904 over their insistence on an alliance with the Russian liberals and their opposition to a reconciliation with Lenin and the Bolsheviks. He worked between 1904 and 1917 trying to reconcile different groups within the party, which resulted in many clashes with Lenin and other prominent party members. Trotsky later maintained he had been wrong in opposing Lenin on the issue of the party. During these years, Trotsky began developing his theory of permanent revolution and developed a close working relationship with Alexander Parvis in 1904 to 1907. Unrest and agitation against the Russian government came to a head in St. Petersburg on January 3, 1905, when a strike broke out at the Putilov works in the city. The single strike grew into a general strike, and by January 7, 1905, there were 140,000 strikers in St. Petersburg. On Sunday, January 9, 1905, Father Georgy Gapon led a peaceful procession of citizens through the streets to the Winter Palace to ask the Tsar for food and relief from the oppressive government. The palace guard obviously just fired on the peaceful demonstration, resulting in the deaths of some 1,000 demonstrators, and this is why it became known as Bloody Sunday. After Bloody Sunday, Trotsky secretly returned to Russia in February 1905. At first, he wrote leaflets for an underground printing press in Kiev, but soon moved to the capital, St. Petersburg. There he worked with both Bolsheviks and the local Menshevik committee, which he pushed in a more radical direction. However, Trotsky had to flee to rural Finland. There he worked on fleshing out his theory of permanent revolution. On September 19, 1905, the typesetters at the Sidin print works in Moscow went out on strike for shorter hours and higher pay. By the evening of September 24th, the workers at 50 other printing shops in Moscow were also on strike. On October 2nd, 1905, the typesetters in printing shops in St. Petersburg decided to strike in support of the Moscow strikers. On October 7th, 1905, the railway workers of the Moscow-Kazan Railway also went out on strike. During all this confusion, Trotsky returned from Finland to St. Petersburg on October 15, 1905. On that day, Trotsky spoke before the St. Petersburg Council of Workers' Deputies, which was meeting at the Technological Institute in the city. Also attending were some 200,000 people crowded outside to hear the speeches, about half of all workers in St. Petersburg. After his return, Trotsky and Parvis took over the newspaper Russian Gazette. Trotsky also co-founded, together with Parvis and Julius Martov and other Mensheviks, The Beginning, which also proved to be a very successful newspaper in St. Petersburg in 1905. Just before Trotsky's return, the Mensheviks had independently come up with the same idea that Trotsky had, an elected non-party revolutionary organization representing the capital's workers, the First Council of Workers. By the time of Trotsky's arrivals, the St. Petersburg Council was already functioning. Trotsky joined the council and he was elected vice chairman. He did much of the actual work of the council, and after Khrushchev Nosar, the leader of the council, was arrested on November 26, 1905, he was elected as its chairman. The following day, the council was surrounded by troops loyal to the government and the deputies were arrested. Trotsky and other communist leaders were tried in 1906 on charges of supporting an armed rebellion. On October 4th, 1906, he was convicted and sentenced to exile to, you guessed it, Siberia. Now, while he was going to exile in Obdorsk, Siberia in January 1907, Trotsky escaped at Berezov and once again made his way to London. He attended the Fifth Congress of the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, and in October he moved to Vienna in Austria. For the next 7 years, he often took part in the activities of the Austrian Social Democratic Party and occasionally of the German Social Democratic Party. In October 1908, he was asked to join the editorial staff of Truth, which he co-edited with Adolf Joff, Matvei Skobelev, and Viktor Kopp. Avoiding factional politics, the paper was very popular with Russian industrial workers, and both the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks split multiple times after the failure of the 1905 to 1907 revolution, as if they weren't already divided enough. Now, money was very scarce for the publication of Truth, which is kind of ironic since communists don't believe in money, but Trotsky approached the Russian Central Committee to seek financial backing for the newspaper throughout 1909. The Central Committee in 1910 was controlled by a majority of Bolsheviks. Lenin agreed to the financing of Truth, but required a Bolshevik to be appointed as co-editor of the paper. Lev Kamenev, Trotsky's brother-in-law, was added to the editorial board from the Bolsheviks, but the unification attempts between the Bolsheviks and Mensheviks failed in August 1910. Trotsky continued publishing Truth for another 2 years until it finally closed in April 1912. Now, the Bolsheviks started a new workers-oriented newspaper in St. Petersburg on April 22, 1912, and they also called that Truth. And Trotsky was so upset by what he saw as a usurpation of his newspaper's name that in April 1913 he wrote a letter to Nikolai Chkheidze, a Menshevik leader, where he denounced Lenin and the Bolsheviks. Although he quickly got over it, the letter was intercepted by the Russian police and was put into the archives. Anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll try to make lots of videos soon. See ya.